different people?
Yes. Go. Yeah. Okay, so Sylvia Plath is an A-lister. She's famous. At the last heard, I think they made at least 2 movies of her life, if not 3. When somebody makes a movie of your life, you're doing well. You agree? I mean, unless you're Hitler and making a that reason. Okay, so they made a couple movies of Sylvia's life. She's famous, blah, 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 blah. All right. What do you got to know about Sylvia, or at least what do you want to know? Sylvia puts a brand of poetry on the American table that people will call it confessional poetry. And she's going to open up her heart and show you inside it. Now, I got news for you. How many people in the room right now would want me to see inside their heart? Me either. I don't want to see inside your heart. I don't want you to see inside my heart. Why? Because there's stuff in there we don't want people to see. That's why it's in my heart. What? I mean, in other words, right? I don't want to see everything. Right? I don't know what the hell you guys do in your free time. I don't want to see it. I don't want to see. No. In other words, there's only a certain amount. I want to see inside your heart. That's your heart. All right. Sylvia believed in opening it up and taking you inside. Now, sometimes that can be uncomfortable. We're about to read one. Okay. So here's the deal. Here's the deal with Sylvia. Sylvia Plath is born up in like New England. She's got money. She's got, out of 4 stars, she's got 2 stars of money. Nice. Had a maid, but she's not like $50 million. Okay. Big house, maid. All right. I'm sure they had 2 cars and a house on Long Island, but 2 out of 4 stars. More money than I'll ever have. Go.
What's 2 stars in today's world, would you say?
What's 2 stars mean?
Not like, how much money would you rate 2 stars nowadays?
Oh, if you made more than 100, if you made like 200 grand a year, you got 2 stars. You're not rich. You agree?
Yeah.
You don't, right? You're not rich. But I'll bet you if you make 200,000 a year, I bet you have somebody to come in, right, and clean your house for you. You probably have 2 cars and maybe a house on the shore.
Yeah.
You agree? That's 2 stars. You're fine. Let's face it. I'll never have a house on the shore.
Yeah, I don't have a house.
Right.
What's 4 stars?
4? You know the guy, Fred Grandy, that did the Grandy Auditorium?
Yeah.
He's probably looking at 50 million.
What's that guy?
He bought land, believe it or not, you know what he did? He bought land in Florida, and it was cheap, right before a real estate boom in Florida. So you know, and I'll give you like a thing. He bought land for $5 an acre, and a year and a half later, somebody offered him $155 an acre. And he bought like 80,000 acres.
So it was a big investment.
Oh, and he got lucky. Let's face it, $5 an acre, he could have lost money. Although you always think real estate's a good investment. Okay, so in other words, he went down Florida with $1 million and came back with 50.
And who were the chief executives under that interview?
Yes.
Yes.
He was up on stage, yes. The other guy is the guy that, he's loaded with money, don't get me wrong. There's an M.
They were throwing thousands.
But there's an M next to his bank account too, like he's in the millions, but nowhere near 50. 5.
Wait, so the young guy or the old guy? The old guy is the one that's
Old guy, I'm gonna say the old guy 4 to 50, young guy 4 to 7.
We only talk about that one, right?
Don't get me wrong, 4 to 7.
This is for the other.
Yeah.
4 to 7.
Yeah.
All right. Sylvia then. She's got money, but again, okay, here's Sylvia's life. Her father is a big person in her life when she's young. Her father's name is Otto. Okay. German, obviously. Otto Plath. Okay, Otto. Here's the problem with Otto. He's a beekeeper, like he's a doctor of bees. So like he knows honeybees and he knows like other kind of bees. All right. So he lectures at Harvard. He writes books on bees. Okay. So far so good. Here's the problem with Otto. Otto, when Sylvia was 8 years old, Otto got something wrong with him. First of all, he had diabetes. Otto got something wrong with him. He thought he had lung cancer. He did not go to a doctor because he thought it was terminal. So he didn't tell anybody and never went to a doctor. By the time he went to a doctor to get advice on how to die, they diagnosed him as being, in other words, whatever he had, it was never fatal. They could have cured it with a pill. But by the time he went to a doctor, he was dead. So he never had to die. You know what I mean? He self-diagnosed. What's the thing about self-diagnosing is?
Don't do it.
Don't do it. This guy had 19 degrees from like Harvard, and he self-diagnosed. and he never had to die. He had something, but it's diabetes. He would have had to get fixed, but he would have been fixed in 3 days. Next thing you know, he dies at a relatively young age. Here's the problem. When he died, in a sense, he took Sylvia's emotional health with him. Sylvia thought he abandoned her. Sylvia blamed him for not going to a doctor. Sylvia blamed him for being, right? You know where I'm going here? She blamed her father for basically, you went, Daddy, like, how could you be like that? You didn't go to a doctor. Next thing you know, I'm 8 years old, and I'm not a father. You abandoned me. And then she turned that abandonment into abuse. Basically, she said, by you abandoning me, you abused me. So it gets kind of dark with Sylvia. So she grows up a troubled child because of this. So she's troubled, okay. She's troubled, she's emotionally and mentally troubled. She tries suicide several times, okay? At least 2 that I know of, maybe 3. So she tries suicide. Here's the weird thing about Sylvia's suicide attempt. I believe her first suicide attempt, she was in her house, in her big house. She took and I'm gonna make this, she took 80 vitamin C tablets. Right, you know what I mean? In other words, if you want to kill yourself, you could jump off the Empire State Building and you ain't gonna live through that, you agree? But she took 80 something, and she crawled under her family steps, and they didn't find her for a day and a half. She fell asleep basically. It could have been something like a Tylenol PM, but she took a lot of them. Okay. When her family found her, nobody really thought she wanted to kill herself as much as they thought she was crying out for help. You see my point? Okay, so if you're Sylvia, her suicide attempts, whether they were 2 or 3, nobody that knew her thought she really wanted to kill herself. Nobody. They just thought she was crying out for someone to help. I know it's weird, her first suicide attempt, she left a note, and I've always thought this was a strange note to leave. Her suicide note said, taking a long walk, be home tomorrow. Very poetic, right? Very poetic. Now, sad. But anyway, so she had these suicide episodes. 2, at least 3. Now, okay, she survives these. She goes on to go to a good school. And if I said to you Sarah Lawrence, it might not be Sarah Lawrence, the college. It might be like Vassar. But it was a woman's college, a good school. Okay, now, at Sarah Lawrence, she starts writing for the school newspaper. It turns out Sylvia has talent for writing. Okay, she starts to get published. She writes newspaper stories. She writes magazine stories. She writes fiction. She starts to get published. She starts to get a little bit of fame. A little bit. You would have known her, but up in Boston, they might have known her. Okay, now, she gets a Fulbright scholarship to London. A big scholarship to go study in England. Because she's good at what she does. While she's over in London, she meets a dude. Ladies, it's always the dude. It's always the dude. She meets a guy. His name is Ted Hughes. Ted Hughes is the most popular poet in England. He's a good-looking man. If you look him up, he's good-looking. He's dark, with a dark beard, with a dark mustache, with dark hair, and he always wears these black, dark suits. He looks like a vampire, but he's hot. Okay. So Sylvia starts dating Ted Hughes. They become celebrities. Yes, nowadays you got Jay-Z and Beyonce. But, okay, nowadays you have these celebrity couples. Back then you could have a writer celebrity couple. Nowadays you can't even envision it. Nowadays it has to be music. But okay, so now they're a celebrity couple. The paparazzi follow them around, taking pictures. There's newspaper articles about Ted, about Sylvia. They're celebrities. People are snapping their picture. They have 2 kids together. Everything is great. Sylvia's writing, her insanity or her emotional seems to be under control. Ted and her, right? Ted's famous, she's famous, life is good. And then all of a sudden, it comes crashing down. All because Ted decides that there's a girl that's renting a room from them that was hot. Her name is Asaya Weevil, which when they were handing out names, she got the shitty end of the stick. Asaya Weevil. Okay, her name is Asaya Weevil. Ted begins a hot love affair with Asaya. So you're Sylvia. You're emotionally unstable, you're mentally unstable because of your upbringing, and as we speak, your husband has a girlfriend.
Wait, W-E-E-V-I-L?
W-E-E-V-I-L. Weevil. As it turns out, by the way, pretty. Never look, again, you can look at her, she's hot. Anyway, so Ted's hot, she's hot, everybody's hot. All right, so Ted starts seeing a side. Here's the problem. One night, Sylvia's home with the two kids, and she gets a newspaper in, and there's a picture on the front page of Ted Hughes walking into a New York restaurant, and who's on his arm? It's not Sylvia, it's Asaya. So in other words, Sylvia's humiliation is not just private, it's public. Can you imagine if you were public? It's one thing being privately humiliated, you agree? But her humiliation is public. The entire nation watches Ted Hughes cheat on her. This sends Sylvia into a tailspin, emotionally. Not long after that, one morning she gets up, she takes her two little kids, she puts them in the dining room. She feeds them their breakfast, she gives them a little oatmeal. She goes in the kitchen, she takes a towel, and she wets it, and she puts the towel underneath the kitchen door. She turns on the oven, puts her head in the oven, and kills herself. Here's the weird thing. She may not have meant to kill herself. That every morning when Sylvia lived in this place, right? Every morning, the guy downstairs, an older guy, like 70 years old, he would go and get the morning newspaper. And he would bring the newspaper up to Sylvia. He would knock on the door at 9 o'clock every morning. They would exchange words like, "Hi Sylvia, hi Joe, how are you? Good, how's the kids, Sylvia? Fine. Okay, thanks Joe." And he would leave. This was their routine. The morning she killed herself, he overslept and never got the newspaper. She put her head in the oven like 5 of 9. A lot of people think what? This was another one of Sylvia crying out for help. That in other words, she put her head in the oven at 5 of 9, thinking that what? At 9 o'clock, he'll what? He'll come with the newspaper, he'll open up the door, he'll see the two kids, he'll see the towel, and he'll realize something's wrong, and he'll save her. That morning, he never came. And she died.
Did her kids go watch her kill herself?
Well, they were in the next room. So,
How old were the kids?
they were young enough to be toddlers, like kids. Now, I think she was 30 years old when she died. So her kids face it. So if she had babies at 24, the oldest one could have been like 6 and 7, and the other one might have been 4. Now, as we speak, it gets weirder in that Sylvia and Ted had 2 kids, Nicholas and Frida. Frida is still alive. She's a poet, like her mom. Nicholas hung himself a couple years ago.
Oh my God.
Asaya Weevil hung her. Asaya Weevil put her head in an oven, just like Sylvia did. Although she had her daughter with her, and she killed her own daughter. Have you right? I'm just telling you this as far as interest to what's going on.
Are we gonna have to know?
No, in other words, this is the stuff for your essay if you want to put some of this stuff in. So in other words, you're Sylvia. Sylvia's dead. Nicholas, you had a son with Ted, he hangs himself. Your daughter, Frida, she is still living. However, you know the girlfriend that Ted burned you for, Asaya Weevil? She got a Sylvia complex. She was living in the same house Sylvia lived in after Sylvia died, and she started decorating her house like Sylvia and actually acting like Sylvia. She got weirded out over, in other words, over taking Sylvia's place. And eventually, she put her head in an oven, just like Ted's first wife did. If you're Ted, your 2 ex-wives both died of asphyxiation. Now, the only difference was, she didn't put her kids in the other room and give them breakfast. She had a daughter with Ted Hughes, and Asaya Weevil's daughter was killed the same day that her mom killed herself. In other words, she killed her daughter with her. Ever since then, Ted Hughes' life has been a living hell. He just died a few years ago. Women all over the world blame Ted Hughes for the death of Sylvia Plath and Asaya Weevil, and they made his life a living hell. They sent him death threats daily.
When did he die?
He died a couple years ago, like literally, probably in the last 10 years. But they sent him death threats daily. Ted Hughes tried to put, you know Sylvia Plath's tombstone? He had Sylvia Plath Hughes put on the tombstone. Every year, the women in America come to that tombstone and take rocks and paint and they spray paint and knock off the huge part. And every year he would put his name back on. And every year they went back to the cemetery and took his name off. He did this for years. They made his life a living hell. They blamed him for taking away for making Sylvia kill herself. Weird story, right? Weird story. The only person left in this story to even talk to about anything is Frida.
So mom died, stepmom died, and dad died.
And even all the kids involved.
How does she live?
Yeah, it's a dark, sad story. Okay, so now go.
Is Frida a dark writer?
I don't know what's funny. I didn't know she was still alive. My last class, they said, "Where's Frida?" I went, "I don't know. I don't keep track of the children." Anyway, they looked her up. Apparently, she's still alive. And then someone said she's a poet. Weird, right?
Oh, she's a poet and a painter.
But like I said, I mean, Sylvia was good looking. Ted was good looking. Isaiah was good looking. I'm just saying, these are not people. I mean, these are rich, good looking people that just.
Makes children's books.
That want.
He did that.
Children's books.
It's just sad, I'm telling you. But it's dark story. All right.
Let me see if she
And they're
knows.
all good looking. Look at Ted. Look up Ted. He's a good looking guy. I knew that one.
Oh.
Ted, he's good looking, right?
No, he's ugly.
And he dressed in black, right? Kind of cool. He's like a vampire, right?
That's my book.
He is good looking. Can you search Ted?
Nobody's that hot.
Whoa!
I just showed you him, T. You're not paying attention.
I'm gonna start with that picture.
This is
It's
him?
cute. He looks like Superman.
Good looking. Look at that. He's good looking.
Not good looking.
He's not bad looking.
That is ugly.
You think he's ugly?
Yes.
Dixon, is he ugly?
He is not.
Go young. Go young, Ted Hughes.
Frankfurt's jealous. Wait, let me see.
He's not ugly. He's not ugly.
He ugly. Ugly.
Young.
He didn't age
Young.
too well.
Oh, I don't know about that, but as a young guy, he was kind of hot, right?
You ate your wheel.
Isaiah? She was pretty blonde.
She's pretty.
These are not, he's not bad looking. Oh, stop.
She's
Yeah.
You wanna see a girl?
Tina.
Sylvia's not bad looking.
she look crazy.
Where's all? Oh,
I
you
just
showed
showed
me.
you.
Who is that, Frida? That's Isaiah? Oh, gotcha. Is that when the hair was dark?
She was blonde.
Yeah, I've seen her with blonde hair.
Okay.
And what? Is it? Maybe she was younger. Maybe she got it black for Ted. Maybe she got it black for Ted.